It gives me great pleasure to introduce the first presenter of the evening to give the annual Najeeb Halaby Award for Public Service, a former recipient himself, Secretary of Transportation, LaHood. As a member of Congress, a member of the Obama administration, and as a father who has shared his civic values with his family, Ray exemplifies the highest attributes of a citizen in public service. Please join me in welcoming Secretary LaHood.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity and privilege to present this award. I'm going to just say a word or two about something that I want to thank you all for. I know that every person in this room, while Sam and Katie were in Egypt, were praying for them and thinking about them, and because I heard from many of you. And I want you to know how grateful our family is for your friendship, for your prayers, for your thoughts, and what you did to help us and to help Sam and Katie get back safely. They're here tonight, and I didn't tell them I was going to do this, but I want you to say hello to Sam LaHood and his wife, Katie. Stand up, stand up, stand up. I also want to say a special word about our friend Jim Zogby. I think all of you know that AAI would not be the fantastic organization that it is. The leadership that Jim has shown over the years, not only with AAI, but for those people around the world who've had no voice, and he's given them a voice. For people who wanted their issues brought to the attention of our government, and he brought them to the attention of our government and continues to do that. I know how important this dinner is to the mission of AAI, but it's also very important that we continue to support AAI for the important work that Jim and his entire team, he has a great team of people, and they work very, very hard, and they do a great job. So, Jim, thank you for always doing such a great job. Please, please. And finally, before I make the presentation, I want to say that I feel a great privilege to be the only Arab American and Lebanese American in President Obama's cabinet. And I want you to know that I have, whenever the occasion occurs, taken the opportunity to make sure the President and the rest of his team understand the importance of Lebanon, and you know how important Lebanon is to me, but also the importance of issues that face the Middle East. And I do consider it a great privilege, not only to be the Secretary of Transportation, but to represent the important values and views that I know that all of you care so much about. So tonight I have the privilege of presenting the Najeeb Halaby Award. Najeeb Halaby was the ultimate public servant. In the 1960s, he was one of the strongest and most influential voices calling for a U.S. Department of Transportation, and I'm very glad that he did that, by the way. As head of the FAA and later CEO and chairman of Pan Am Airways, he was a major figure in making our aviation industry the safest and the most respected in the world. The second reason this award is important and special to me is more personal. 4 years ago, I was honored to receive the Najeeb Halaby Award myself. It remains a great source of pride for me and my family, especially to be recognized by people whose heritage I share. Tonight, it's my privilege to present the award to a most distinguished public servant, Ambassador Ted Kattouf.
صار أقول اللي صرتك في بالي صرتك في
After graduating from Penn State, Ted began his career in the military, rising to the rank of captain. In 1972, he joined the Foreign Service, where he began a 30-year odyssey through the Middle East. There were postings in Kuwait, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Saudi Arabia. He was our ambassador to the United Arab Emirates. And from 2001 to 2003, he was the ambassador to Syria, the country where Najeeb Halaby's family came from. After returning from Syria in 2003, Ted left the Foreign Service, but he certainly didn't leave public service. Ted accepted a new challenge that called upon all of his knowledge, skill, and expertise. It also called upon his tremendous respect for all people as citizens of the global community. As president and CEO of Amethyst for the past 9 years, Ted heads an organization that's helped 500,000 people in the Middle East and North Africa enjoy richer lives and prepare for jobs in the global economy. Gibran wrote that to look back on your life with satisfaction is to live twice. Ted isn't ready to look back just yet. When that day comes, he'll be able to do so with great satisfaction in recognition of service, of his service to the world community. It's my pleasure to present the 2012 Najeeb Halaby Award for Public Service to Ambassador Ted Kattouf.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. It is certainly a great honor to receive this award from you. And as you said, Najeeb Halaby was the first senior official to call for the creation of the Department of Transportation. Mr. Secretary, your integrity, fairness, and dare I say it, moderation, have won you respect among so many people in this country. We need many more like you in public service, sir. Of course, I also want to thank the board and leadership of the Arab American Institute for this honor. I am truly humbled by the accomplishments of previous recipients, but I am pleased to accept this award because in giving it to me, you are recognizing the 6 decades of Amity's good work across the entire arc of the Middle East and North Africa. My thanks also go out to the board of Amity's under the leadership of our chair, Dr. Mary Gray, for giving me this extraordinary opportunity to serve. It's been my privilege to follow 2 previous U.S. ambassadors as president, Robert Dillon, who was our ambassador in Beirut, as many of you recall, during some very dark days, and Ambassador William Rue, who was our ambassador to Yemen and the United Arab Emirates, and I had the honor to serve under him as his DCM in Yemen. Whatever successes Amity's experienced during my tenure as president and CEO, the way was paved by some very extraordinary people to allow me and to allow our organization to succeed. And I also inherited a wonderful staff, many of whom serve until this day. Amity's is an American organization, despite the fact that Ted Kattouf is the president. It's an American organization that focuses exclusively on building ties with the Middle East and North Africa through education, training, institutional development, and exchange programs. It is a great honor for our organization to be entrusted by the U.S. Department of State with managing the programs of Fulbright scholars and exchange students from the Middle East and North Africa region. Currently, we are responsible for the programs of 375 Arab Fulbright students studying at universities and colleges throughout our great country. English teaching is a signature program of Amity East and not a skill to be underrated in the global economy. The U.S. Department of State recognized Amity East's capabilities in this area by awarding contracts for us to teach English in 9 countries to scholarships students from underserved areas. These are secondary school students, middle school and high school students who study after school, on weekends, and in the summer. Now, you might ask, okay, what's the big deal? What's the benefit? Well, a lot of these young people go on to participate in exchange programs. They come to the United States, live with American families, and go to high schools here in the United States under the Youth Exchange Scholars Program. And most of them who did not believe they had that much potential end up going to local universities and even getting scholarships at American universities and prestigious universities in the region, such as LAU, AUB, and AUC. I'm also proud to say that Amity East has become a leader in workforce development and educational reform throughout the region. I'm particularly proud that Amity East has been awarded by USAID and the Open Society Institute of George Soros with the Palestine Faculty Development Program, a program that concentrates on building the skills of young faculty throughout the West Bank, Jerusalem, and Gaza, in order that they can teach disciplines which are often neglected, such as social sciences, environmental planning, and urban studies. Like all nonprofit organizations, Amity East needs many sources of funding, and one stalwart who has always been there for us and insists on giving something back to our community is Dr. Ray Arani, the chairman of Occidental Petroleum. He has had one of the most successful tenures as a corporate president and CEO of anyone you can imagine. He has stood by me and Amity since the first days of my presidency, and I am extraordinarily grateful to him. I also want to thank the GE Foundation, which recently gave us a grant for $1 million to roll out a new program, the Professional Certification in English Language Teaching. This is an accredited program that allows us in 6 countries to try to ensure that those who teach English do so at a high level, whether they're in elementary or secondary school teaching. This grant would not have happened without the support of another successful and talented Arab American executive, Mr. Nabil Habayeb, the CEO, or president, if you will, of GE for the Middle East and North Africa. Look, I'm going to run over time here, and I apologize because I know you're all hungry. But bear with me a few moments because there's some things I want to get off my chest. Jim Zogby conceived and created AAI to promote the involvement of Arab Americans in politics and policy after so many years of slights and insults. And here I am recalling such things as in 1984, Walter Mondale's campaign returning checks to self-identified Arab Americans only because they were Arab Americans. Newt Gingrich just called the Palestinians an invented people. It must have been truly a coincidence that he said these words just after a major American benefactor of Israel's most chauvinist right-wing parties contributed millions to a so-called independent PAC supporting his campaign. And for that, we can thank the Supreme Court and their decision on Citizens United. In summer of 2005, USA Today, in collaboration with the Gallup poll and CNN, asked Americans such infamous questions as, would you require Arabs, including those who are US citizens, to carry a special ID or to undergo special security checks? In response, I wrote a letter to the editor that USA Today published, mocking the question. I asked, how are US citizens of Arab extraction to be defined? For instance, should General John Abi Zaid, the commander of the CENTCOM and the man responsible for prosecuting 2 wars, one in Iraq and one in Afghanistan, should he undergo special checks? How about the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, General Georges Jalwan? Shouldn't we worry about him? He could be subversive. I riffed mercilessly on this theme for several paragraphs, and to the credit of USA Today, they put it all in. But my rebuttal pales in comparison to what Senator John Sununu did last December when Mr. Gingrich played pander bear to Sheldon Adelson. By all accounts, Senator Sununu has a bright career in wherever he chooses to go, and certainly if he wishes to go back into public office, he has every right to expect success. Yet the senator wrote a column in the Boston Herald challenging Gingrich, entitled, "Gingrich's Lies Reveals His Bigotry." He wrote, "When bigots speak, their words have purpose. They intentionally choose phrases that inflame, denigrate, and marginalize other races, religions, or nationalities. They employ distortions and stereotypes to bolster false arguments." Which brings us to Newt Gingrich, who in an interview last week derided and invented Palestinian people. His comments were calculated but demonstrably false slander, designed to curry favor with a constituency for which he cares by insulting one for which he does not. With one callous statement, he dismissed the plight of 4 million people. I encourage you to read this article if you haven't already. But the senator showed extraordinary courage, something that's very rare in political circles these days. In the vernacular, he is a stand-up guy. And shame on the rest of us if we are unwilling to take a stand and make a difference. The men and women who have come out of our community to ably serve this country should never have their memory and honor impugned, or that of their immigrant forebears. Najeeb Halaby was a test pilot during World War II. In later years, he mocked his service, but his was a most dangerous assignment. In recent years, four Americans of Lebanese and Syrian heritage have become full generals in the US Armed Forces. They were the sons and grandsons of Lebanese and Syrian immigrants. Besides the aforementioned Generals Abi Zaid and Jalwan, there were General Cody and General Joseph Ashi, who headed the Air and Space Command. Colonel Peter Mansour, the executive officer to General Petraeus, helped that illustrious leader plan the successful counterinsurgency strategy in Iraq. Colonel James Jabby Jabara was the first jet ace in the history of the US Armed Forces, shooting down 15 MiGs during the Korean War. When you think of military leaders, the great cardiac surgeon Michael DeBakey probably does not come to mind, but he should. He invented the mobile Army Surgical Hospital, made famous in the Korean War television series MASH that featured Jamie Farr. Can you imagine how many countless lives were saved by Dr. DeBakey's innovation? The Republicans opened their national convention in the summer of 2008 by paying tribute to Michael Mansour, who posthumously was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for jumping on a grenade in Ramadi, Iraq, to save his fellow Navy SEALs. None of these heroes and leaders did this as Arab Americans. They did it as full Americans. But don't tell me that their upbringing and values didn't contribute to the courage and patriotism that they displayed, which makes all of us so proud. This community has served honorably in every profession, and I don't want to end tonight without recognizing three civilians. The late Ambassador Philip Habib was a role model and mentor to so many Foreign Service officers. Always comfortable in his own skin, he was far from the stereotypical striped pants, cookie-pushing diplomat as you can get. Henry Kissinger elevated him to the highest position that Foreign Service officers can usually hope to attain, that of Undersecretary for Political Affairs. Helen Thomas deserves the highest praise, not just as a fearless journalist, but also for standing up for women's rights in general, and in particular, for women in the National and White House press corps. Tonight, AEI is rightfully honoring the memory of a national treasure, Anthony Shadid. Time and again, he exposed himself to danger. Not only to get the story and to get it right, but to humanize those who were too often dealt with as mere statistics or in stereotypical fashion. I know were Anthony with us tonight, he would be the proudest one in the room of Miss Sarah Ghanem, only 24, who was just awarded a Pulitzer Prize for her reporting of the child molestation scandal at her alma mater and mine, the Pennsylvania State University. All of us, all immigrants, owe this country a huge debt of gratitude. The people mentioned tonight, and many of you here this evening, have made an incredibly rich down payment on that obligation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.